What is your "we will never speak of this again" moment? Teenage me, maybe 14. I find out a girl my age wants to suck me off in my neighborhood. We meet in the woods one night and do the deed. A week later she posts it on MySpace. That night I'm outside shooting hoops with my friends and her father walks over to my house and I immediately know what's going on. He asks to speak to my parents and I let him in the house. After the most painful hour of my life he appears out of the front door and leaves. My parents call me in and we discuss it and I cry like a bee from being embarrassed. It's been 15 years and it has never been brought up again. A friend of mine and I were watching a movie on a site called Rabbit. You can all watch movies and browse the net on the same tab. And somehow we got into an argument over horse dongs being able to kill people. She looked it up online and we watched a nasty video of a man getting plowed by a horse. Little did we know, a notification went around on our friend list saying Brent and Anna are watching man gets violated by horse and dies. Come watch with them. I am still ashamed. One day, about 7 years ago or so, I went hiking with my sisters. It was fun but exhausting so I decided to take a shower when we got back home. I was also in the mood for some extra stress relief, so I grabbed my flashlight and sneak it in with me. I start undressing and notice a little brown spot about halfway down my inner thigh. Upon close inspection, I realize it's a big, fat freaking tick. Oh, crap, I think this bastard's been stealing my blood for hours. And who knows how many more are on me that I can't even see. I know I can't handle this situation alone. So I do what any sane, rational person would do. I burst out of the bathroom after fumbling with the doorknob, run straight into the living room where my eldest sister is watching TV, and say I have a situation that requires your assistance, except all she heard was help, so she looks at me confused and then bursts out laughing. That was when I realized I'm standing in the middle of the living room, completely naked. I cover my shame and run back to the bathroom to grab a towel. My sister stops laughing enough to come check on me, and I finally manage to put into words that I have a tick and need help removing it, as well as checking for more. My mom hears all the racket and starts coming out of her room to see what's what. At the same time my sister looks me dead in the eye, with the kind of face that just screams "you're a goddamned moron," as she quickly and elegantly grabs my flashlight off the bathroom counter and chucks it into the cabinet under the sink right before my mom turns the corner. She ended up helping get rid of the tick and check for more, obviously trying very hard not to laugh, while I just sit there in silent misery. Afterward, I beg her to never mention this to anyone. I threw my flashlight away later that week, on garbage day, so nobody else would see it. My sister passed away a couple days ago from an overdose that we believe was a suicide. Oddly enough, this is my favorite memory of her, despite how embarrassing it is, although I'll never be able to share it with the rest of my family. I'm sorry to hear about your sister, M8. Thank you for sharing. The time I showed my dong to my father because I thought it was shrinking. I was 17. At school I ate something for lunch that didn't sit well with my stomach. Next thing I know, I'm in my classroom hunched over feeling like my stomach is combusting. I go into the bathroom to find that my dong has become short and black, with the skin crusty and dry. It felt like it would rip off if you tugged on it a little. When I got home I was hysterical because I thought I would lose my dong, or that this was permanent. I decided swallow my embarrassment and show my dad. We did nothing about it and eventually the skin went back to normal and my dong grew back to an almost normal size. However, my dong is not as long as it used to be, both erect and flaccid. Still to this day I don't know if the food I ate was the cause of it. It was just a slice of pizza. My dad and I have never spoken of that day. Update. I think it's important to note that I'm black and I have light brown skin, so it's possible that my dong wasn't actually black but the contracted skin made it look darker in color and I confused it for turning black. Also, when I showed my dad my dong looked almost normal. The skin wasn't as contracted and wasn't nearly as dry as it was when I looked in my school bathroom. That's why he decided not to take me to the hospital. Didn't have a dad, so one day my dong swelled up and I thought something serious was going on, so I had my mom check it for me. Turns out I had touched it after messing with cleaning supplies. 10/10 never brought it up again and never will. My brother had an imaginary girlfriend with an imaginary Facebook profile. She would post loving, imaginary messages on his wall. I asked about her a few times, then got a little more persistent. After a while, I got suspicious and did an image search for her photos. They were for another person in another country. Also, no one ever saw the imaginary girlfriend. If someone asked me about her after seeing their loving Facebook exchanges, I would kind of imply that we'd met to spare my brother and myself embarrassment. Eventually, he stopped talking about the imaginary girlfriend and she stopped posting imaginary things. I will never ask what happened to her. I'm pretty sure he will never mention her again. She's still on Facebook. So what you're saying is the imaginary GF is single now. In middle school, my crush's mom and my mom drove the exact same SUV with similar license plates. After school one day I ran up, hopped in my mom's car and started talking. When she didn't talk back and hadn't left the pickup line, I looked at her. She was not my mom. I looked to my right and my crush is standing outside the car looking at me like I was crazy. I sheepishly got out and ran a few cars back to my real mom. A few years later I had moved back to the area and was a cashier at a local store. My crush came through the line and recognized me and started to say, "Weren't you that girl who?" Where I just interrupted with a yes, handed him his change and quickly started the next customer. A pro would have just went with it. My mom walked in on me getting a BJ in high school. She immediately did a beeline in the opposite direction and said I didn't see anything. Then the girl and I went and ate dinner with them at our dinner table and we never spoke of it again. That was the day your mom stopped seeing you as a little boy. When I was 17, a huge photo radar ticket came in for my truck. Something like 40 kilometers over the speed limit. My mom was furious at me. "How dare you drive like a maniac, I raised you better," and all that. But it turns out I wasn't the driver that day. Dad had borrowed it to pick something up. I asked him how much it was worth to him for me to take the fall, knowing she'd turn on him with the fury of an angry mama bear. And that's I got myself a new HD TV that year. My mum heard me talking to my best friend about the new edition of International Club P magazine that had Jerry Halliwell naked in it. I got back from school one day and there was a brown paper bag on the sofa which my mum edged towards me and walked off. 14-year-old me was forever grateful. "You're the best, mum." My younger brother and I had an unspoken rule about my Victoria's Secret catalogs. He would leave them alone, and when my sis and I were done ordering stuff I would conveniently leave them on the back of the toilet for him. We never spoke about the deal, it was just understood. Win-win for everyone. Had to stay with a work friend one night as we had a conference in his hometown the next day. It was weird enough staying in his spare room, but to top things off he had a fancy modern bathroom with a square toilet, which of course, I blocked in the morning with a turd the size of MT Fuji. After 30 minutes of fruitless searching for a plunger while the situation went from bad to worse, he knocked on the door and asked if I was okay. I had to tell him not to come in but to just hand me a freaking plunger and some bleach. Apparently his GF did the same thing the first night she stayed at his place, so at least I'm not alone. To this day I cannot look him in the eye at work. Sounds like this guy needs to get a better toilet. I was at a pool party in 8th grade. I think I may have been swimming around or sitting weirdly, but I remember a friend of mine told me, "Dude, I just saw your dong." Me, "No you didn't." Friend, "You're right, I didn't." Never spoke about him seeing my dong again. When I was at a middle school pool party, it was a bunch of my guy friends and one girl we were friends with. Halfway through her bikini top slipped and I'm 90% sure every one of us saw it, but nobody said anything. She quickly fixed it and nobody has mentioned it in quite some time. One time I was taking a poop and feeling very faint. I started getting cold sweats, feeling dizzy and lightheaded. In a panic I shouted for my wife to come help me. As she entered the room I proceeded to faint, fall off the toilet and roll my body to side to prevent injury. Mid-fall a solid turd torpedoed out of my butt across the floor, leaving a trail of poop smear. When I came to, my wife was standing there in shock. I got up, grabbed some toilet paper and picked up my shame, and we never spoke of it again. Whoa, must have been a solid log to make you pass out. I had surgery over the weekend and have been extremely constipated. Yesterday I was squatting over a toilet, crying with a jar of Vaseline sitting next to me. My friend, who had come to visit, opened the bathroom door and made eye contact with me as I was attempting to birth 5 days of fecal matter. She then slowly backed out and shut the door. Everyone suggesting laxatives and stuff, but I think you should just try locking the bathroom door. Last week, I was in the separate bathroom at work, pooping and just buying some time until the end of the day. There wasn't much to do. I accidentally had the door unlocked and this guy at my work opened it and saw me on the toilet, and I didn't know what to say, so I said hi. Before the end of the day I told him that whatever that was didn't happen. This guy who I work with. Everyone is asking who he is and I am sitting here wondering why the frick you put pooping in quotes. What is pooping? I got up one night to get some water and found that my teenage son was in the kitchen getting food. He was behind the kitchen counter, so I could only see him from the waist up. When he came around the counter into the hall, two things happened simultaneously. He noticed me, and his eyes grew wide in horror, and I saw that he was butt naked except for a pair of socks. He starts trying to panic run backwards on the tile floor. Imagine Scooby-Doo trying to run but getting stuck in place in a flurry of limbs, but ended up slipping and taking a hard seat on the tile. Worst of all, he dropped his hot pocket. I made sure he was okay, then went back to bed and laughed my butt off. Years later, we were driving and reminiscing about funny memories. I said, "Do you remember that night?" And he cut me off with, "Yes." I didn't even have to specify which night. We knew, and we were silent. My father and I had a peak Cold War. There has been a tacit agreement never to speak of it, and we haven't. When I was a teenager, my mother found my hetero pee stash. Both parents confronted me with it when I got home from school, and of course confiscated it, and of course threw it in the bin. Or so I thought. Months later, I happened upon my collection, hidden at the bottom of my dad's wardrobe. Hidden from my mother, clearly. So I took it back and hid it in my bedroom. What's he going to do? Tell my mother I'd taken the pee he'd hidden from her that he was supposed to have thrown out, and he found it again, and took it back, and hid it, and I found it again, and took it back, and hid it. This went on for years, and it's never been mentioned, and it never will be. My husband and I work at the same small office. We were the first ones in that morning and other employees usually don't show up for another hour or so. There's only one bathroom on our floor as it's a small business. Anyway, I had just had some habanero spicy thing the day before and I was in for some punishment on this particular morning. I'm talking doubled over, clutching your stomach. Your farts are fire punishment. I hear a knock on the bathroom door and I assume it's my husband. Hang on, I'm having the habanero squirts. I'll be out as soon as I can. I groan out between awful spurting sounds. I hear a female voice awkwardly reply, "Oh, okay. Sorry Stacy for pulling you into my terrible morning." My husband and I work at the same small office. We were the first ones in that morning and other employees usually don't show up for another hour or so. There's only one bathroom on our floor as it's a small business. Totally thought this was gonna be a frick story. Nope. My wife and I were at my cousin's apartment in a big city. They have a balcony on the 40th something floor. We were all outside on the balcony drinking some beers and getting a little drunk. My wife rests her beer can, thank God it was a can and not a bottle or glass, on the railing of the balcony. I scold her and go to move it when my half drunk and clumsy self knocks it off and we watch in horror as it falls in slow motion 40 stories and hits the ground like a bullet next to a crowd of people. We never mentioned it to anyone. When my best friend died, we figured he would have liked a sky burial kind of, so at the height of the funeral party we released his ashes into heavens with a giant balloon. After a few meters of flight the string has snapped, and his remains covered the mourning crowd. Everyone made their best efforts to get very drunk as soon as possible. We will never speak of this ever. The smoking hot guy I met the prior weekend asked me out and, naturally, I said yes. Because I just met him, I asked if I could drive, and he said no problem. On the way to get some grub, we're cruising along with the perfect tunes playing in the car, windows down, on an absolutely beautiful night. He looks over, I look over, we're both just sparkling. You know, it was one of those moments where you want to take a mental snapshot. And then, I guess we must have driven through an area of something he was allergic to. because he sneezed a couple small ones, then with one massive blow, honked a hoo-a-hoo wad of snot all over my windshield and dashboard. But, unbelievably, that's not the worst part. No. He pretended like it didn't happen, and went about talking, and scooping it up with his hands and smearing it onto his pants. I was beyond mortified. I was throwing up in my mouth. My eyes were watering, and he didn't want me to pull over to get it cleaned up. We had to go to dinner like that, with snotty pants. Sigh. I ended up marrying him. We have never, ever spoken of it again, not even 40 years later. The last sentence is great. After a house party when I was a teenager, me and my friend both passed out on my bed. About 2-3 hours later I woke up with horrendous cramp in my leg, so I've sat on the edge of the bed massaging it, trying to get rid of it. My friend woke up and thought I was masturbating but got too awkward to ask WTF was going on. He never said anything until the next morning when he was giving me a weird look. I'd prefer we never speak of it again. He loves twisting the story to any girls on nights out. See Jim. I even posted on Reddit on how it was just a cramp and wasn't masturbating right next to you while you were sleeping. Therefore it must be true. We were at a friend's hanging out. He invited a few girls over and one of the guys knew where his nut rag was kept. Someone went to the kitchen and used tongs to grab it and show off. The girls asked what it was and we began to just silently sit there thinking of something. When I was a teenager I got really stoned one day, and when I got home I went for a shower. It was only me and my sister in the house. While still incredibly high I got shampoo in my eyes. In a little panic I slipped, ripped the shower curtain down, fell out the bath, hit head on radiator and landed with my arm down the toilet. My sister burst in to see what had made a huge crashing sound. There's me, naked, wrapped up in a shower curtain on the floor with my arm down the toilet. 12 years later and it's never been brought up. When I was college age, living at home but going to school, my dad worked night shift. Taking advantage of my usually empty house, he didn't get home until 11 AM or so. On a weekend I decided to frick the crap out of my girlfriend at the time, and I did, and she was loud, real loud, like nearly 2 decades of Christian repression looking to take itself out entirely on my dong loud. We finish, towel off, whatever, go downstairs and pass my dad's door on the way. It is now closed. It was for sure open earlier. Look outside. His car is in the driveway. I can hear his TV in his room. Our rooms shared a wall, the headboard of each bed. He never brought it up again. Before this, I had a girl from work over super late but no place to do stuff. So we ended up on the tailgate of my grandpa's truck, parked outside in the open in an alley in town. Also important, my dad's bedroom window faces this but I thought he was asleep. We frick. It's fine. She leaves. I go back in. Next morning my dad says, why was there a girl here last night? Oh, we were just talking. Talking? Huh. Yeah. Then he kind of gives me that I freaking know look and says, alright. Talking. By this point he probably thinks you have a fetish. My parents had to help me get home after an unfortunate event with a dominatrix in Lithuania where I got robbed while strapped down naked on the bed. She took off and I had to be rescued by the Lithuanian police. 15 years old, I wander into the living room in my boxers, hand down the front, enjoying being home alone. President George W. Bush is on TV talking about cloning. With little understanding of what he is talking about, I yell at the top of my lungs, we're fricked. When I was home alone and a teenager, I like to get wacky like this. Probably just an outlet of excess energy and my general facade of being a decent kid. Dance around, yell random things. Basically if you saw me in private at any point in these years you would have thought I was mentally ill. Heck, maybe I am. Who can say? Unfortunately for me I was not home alone and my mom was in the living room watching this unfold. She yelled at me in shock at my behavior. It was probably top 10 most embarrassed I've ever been in my life, and it was never discussed again. I know exactly what you are talking about because I do the exact same thing, LMAO. Once I think the house is empty I get like bursts of energy to just shout and run around really fast like a kid again. So, it passed like 5 years since my dad divorced my mom. Anyway, my mom is not too good with phone stuff. My dad came to pick me and my brother up from my mom's apartment. This was years ago, when me and my brother were 14 and 16. So we talked out the man stuff with my dad, and were allowed to joke around with my dad about these stuff. And our mom climbed in the back rear of my dad's car, because my brother was in the front. And she asked my dad to help her fix her phone. She just bought a new one. It was something with syncing contacts with Gmail, I think. So my dad opened up Chrome, and my mum was on some website about education. And my dad saw that she had around 100 tabs open. So my dad opened them up, and then it hit us. My mom was searching for P, and instead of deleting the history, she just made a new tab. Me, my brother and my father were watching. We all had a short tour, but we stopped. Instantly, we didn't want our mom to know we saw that. After like 2 seconds of being scared of all that wonky crap my mom was searching, my dad shut down Chrome and gave the phone to my mom. He told her he didn't know how to fix it. Then my mom left the car. We never, ever talked about this. Not even between my brother. And we were 100% open to each other. I don't think I dared to touch her phone ever again. Trying to teach my new at the time girlfriend how to drive my manual car. She told me she had done it a few times and knew what she was doing. Fast forward 10 minutes and I no longer have a front bumper. She continues with, "I can't believe I did this. Your friends and family are gonna think I'm an idiot." I just replied with, "I did this and we haven't spoke of it since. Everyone thinks I am the idiot. You are a good so. Really nice that you took the blame to save her embarrassment." Some years ago, the toilet in my kid's bathroom got really clogged. Like impossibly clogged. Nothing, not even one of those toilet snake thingies could unclog it. It was so bad that I literally took the toilet bowl apart and removed it from the mounting, determined to see just what the heck clogging it. Finally, after some poking and prodding around, I dislodged a small canister of hairspray. You know those like travel size versions, about 5 inches high and maybe 1.5 inches in circumference. Confused, I asked my son if he knew how that could have gotten in there. He had a horrified look on his face, as if I had dug something up out of a grave. He was about 13 or 14 at the time, so suddenly I had an idea of what was going on. He tried to explain it away as though I was just fooling around and trying to see what I could flush down the toilet. Haha, but I knew his butt was lying. I totally knew he was trying to stick that thing up his butt and that it fell in. I gave him a look as if to say, I know the truth but I'm not gonna push the matter, and we never spoke of it again. I covered for him when I spoke to my wife and just told her that I think the kids were just fooling around and it fell in. Lol, to push the matter. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.